Hi guys, Mindie Kniss here. This is Kniss Live, episode 3. I believe it's November 7th. And a little bit of a crazy day today. I found out that my website was hacked. So, awesome. Dealing with that and also kind of recovering. Sean and I just got back from a whirlwind trip around the U.S. in the southeastern U.S. We went from Phoenix to New Orleans and did some stuff in New Orleans. Sean had a speech that was great. And then we went from New Orleans to Miami and did more talks there, which was really, really fun. What's up, Bill Church from Seattle? Nice to see you. And then spent a few days in Miami, drove up to Orlando, met with our friend Sally Hogshead and her family for lunch, and then just flew back last night to Phoenix. So a little bit tired, a little bit travel weary, but all is well. Now, if you guys have questions for me today, this is actually going to be a shorter show than normal because, hi Tim Turner, because I'm working on restoring my website after it was hacked. So not so much fun there, but you know, part of being in business, that happens sometimes. So if you guys do have questions, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I have someone wrote in through over this past week with a great question. So I'm going to spend probably the majority of the time speaking to this particular topic. Hi, Lila from Reno. Awesome. Hey, Sebastian. Thanks for joining us today for Kniss Live. So this question comes from Marcin, not entirely sure how to pronounce that. I'm sorry about that. The question, though, is a great question. Did you have any failed past relationships before you married Sean? And if so, what changes or growth happened? Now, one of the reasons that's an awesome question is because of the word failed. Now, that's completely subjective in terms of what does failed mean to you. Now, I personally don't believe in what people call failed relationships because as I see it, relationships are kind of like classes, like courses that you might sign up for in college. So you might take a course that is just a weekend course and you get X amount of credits, maybe 1 credit for a weekend course. And then maybe you sign up for a course that is a semester long and you get a different amount of credits. You get a different learning experience in that course than you would in a weekend course. And you also have a different teacher probably. So, or you might have courses that are multi-year courses. So the way that I look at relationships is that they're similar to college courses in that some of them are going to be long, some of them are going to be short, and most likely they all have different teachers. And there's different subjects to learn as well. So in each relationship that you have, there is a different teacher, that is your partner. You know, I always say that the best personal growth program on the planet is to be in a relationship because holy cow, there is nothing else that will stretch you and grow you and develop you as a person than being in a relationship. You know, being in an intimate relationship because there's so much, you're just called to the table on your stuff. There's no space to get out of it if you want it to be a positive and healthy relationship and vibrant. So there's that. So back to this idea of courses and looking at how we navigate through them. You know, to Marcin, to answer your question, what changes or growth happened, I essentially got to know myself better through the course of these various relationships. I would say that I had probably 3, I mean, I dated a lot of different guys, but probably 3 significant long-term relationships prior to meeting Sean and getting married. And, you know, whether you have more or less than that, there's not a certain number that you have to have before meeting your mate. But they were all helpful. I mean, the people that I dated were lovely human beings, but it wasn't the best connection for me because the difference with Sean is that he and I have a great partnership where we can meet each other at a very awesome high level of personal growth and development. We know we are both committed to doing the work on ourselves and on the relationship as this kind of third entity of what we've got going on here. And I'm sorry this is so shaky today, but trying to hold this. So So yeah, I don't consider any of my past relationships failed relationships. I think they were all awesome and part of the process and part of the journey, which is cool. I'm very grateful to those men that were in my life for various, lengths of time. And that's, I think, a really, really healthy way to look at it is you learn different things, you have different teachers along the way until you develop enough to the point that you're going to meet your one, or at least your one for right now. So awesome. Thanks you guys for putting in these questions. Let me scroll back up here and see what we've got going on. Okay. Hey Carla, thanks for tuning in. Hi from Scotland. Thanks, Carol. Okay, Bill says, how do you handle mishaps like this hack and maintain a positive mindset? Very timely. That's great. I look at it, here's what happened. So I got a comment on my blog, and I thought that's weird because I didn't remember posting a comment section on that specific page. I'm like, why would somebody be commenting on that? So that kind of got me into the background of my website. I started looking at things, and I realized that somebody, or, I don't even think it's necessarily somebody. I think it was more a bot situation where they essentially got into my pages and posted all this crap. Now, what happened was you as a viewer, as an outside person, if you just went to my site, it wouldn't look any different. But what they had done was put in all these websites and web code and all this shit behind the scenes so that all my pages were filled with this junk, even though you wouldn't see it from the outside. So then I looked at what happened and how that went down, trashed everything, and then I need to restore everything the right way. So it's a little bit of a problem, but I don't think it was necessarily a malicious, it wasn't like somebody came and started putting, hate crap on all my sites and that was actually public. So that's not the situation here. It was more of, I'm assuming, a bot that just puts in, spam, essentially. So that doesn't feel like, oh, I was targeted and, I'm such a victim here, which I wouldn't feel that way anyway, because I think that's a crappy way to live life. There's a lot more strength and courage in the idea of saying, this is what happened. Okay, how do we fix it? What do we need to do? And that tends to be my mindset in almost anything. You guys might have heard the story that Sean tells when he had an accident last year. It was just over a year ago now, last summer in 2014. He tells the story of when I came to get him, he had fallen out of his wheelchair, or his wheelchair had kind of crashed onto the cement, and I was coming to get him, and he wanted me to, like peel into the parking lot, like fling the door open and run over to him. Oh my gosh, are you okay? What happened? But that's not me. So, I park my car, get out, I go over, I look at him, I say, how are you? Okay, what is it? What do we need to do? And that's essentially how I approach most things in life. There's not a lot of value for me in high drama. I'm not a big drama person. I don't particularly like that. So I just look at it like, okay, this is what happened. It's not fun. It kind of sucks. But what do I need to do? So I wrote to my web host, and hopefully they're going to be able to help me with the restore. I know a little bit about websites, but not I'm not an expert by any means. So hopefully they'll be able to assist me with that. But it's like just looking at, here's the situation and what needs to happen next. So positive mindset, it's like I can say, yeah, this sucks. This is a crappy situation, but that's not going to serve me or any of you if I'm like, oh, this asshole, you know what I'm saying? So just go on with it. Let's see what else. Patrick, what's up from Northern Ireland with type 3OI, just like Sean? Well, nice to meet you, Patrick. Hey, from California, Sailor. Thanks, Jen. I'm glad you got that class analogy. Suzanne Craig, what inspired you today? That's a brilliant question, because we've just been talking, Sean and I have been talking a lot about inspiration over the last few days and looking at where does that come from and how do we maintain that. The funny thing is that Sean has always said that he is on this planet to help people with insecurities and to rid the world of insecurity. That would be his main goal. And we were talking in the car on the way home from the airport last night. And I was like, you know what's so hilarious is that I really don't care about, I'm like, look, you people are all awesome. I don't understand why you're so insecure. So let's get a move on with what you're here to do. And what my goal is to be this, to help people find inspiration, to either be an example of inspiration for them or to help them find their own inspiration, whatever that looks like. And to Sean, he doesn't even care. You know, that's the thing that Sean gets all the time. People come up to him after his speeches and they'll say, "Oh, you were so inspirational." To him, he's like, who cares? Like, that doesn't mean anything to me. And, you know, if some of you have said that to him, I don't want to burst your bubble. But he just hears that all the time, you know, and it doesn't have the impact. Whereas to me, if somebody wrote on Twitter recently, like, "Oh, you inspire me." And I'm like, that's awesome. That's so cool. Thank you so much. That's such an honor. And we are like the complete opposite with insecurities and inspiration in terms of what we want to do in the world and how we feel about our work and all that stuff. So let me get to your question, Suzanne. What inspired me today? Today, because we just got home from traveling, and it's difficult when traveling to be on any kind of a routine or schedule with working out or eating right, based on, you know, the choices of food you have at airports and things like that. My biggest inspiration today is to eat healthy and make green smoothies and, you know, get my exercise because we didn't have such a routine. I found this really cool app. You guys might have heard of this or might enjoy it if you haven't yet heard of it. But it's called the 7-Minute Workout. And it's just an app for your phone that you can do anywhere. You don't need weights or you don't need any equipment at all. You just use your body weight. And I've been doing that, which is really cool because I figure I can take 7 minutes at least in my day to get a workout. So it's super, super fun, super easy. I'm going to try and not shake this phone so much for you guys. So Suzanne, thank you for asking about inspiration. Michelle, hey from Myrtle Beach. Spent a lot of time there as a kid. That's awesome. Patrick says, Mindie, before you met Sean, had you ever been attracted to disabled guys? Basically, would you consider yourself as ever being a devotee? Patrick, that's I'm only laughing because no, I was never attracted to disabled guys. I didn't really know that many disabled guys. There were some people at my school that had certain disabilities, but no, I never dated anyone with a disability, and I wouldn't actually have even thought about it before meeting Sean. So thank you for your question. Hi, Kathy. How are you? Every relationship we are in helps us totally. Michelle, what are your thoughts on long-distance relationships? I'm in one and it's tough. Yeah, that's exactly my thought on long-distance relationships. They're really, really tough. I've had a few. I kind of had this relationship with a guy in Kenya after I had lived there for a while. And then I was back in the US and he was still in Nairobi. Now, talk about long distance. That sucked. Like, that was really, really hard, especially because he didn't have access to communication. And at that time, smartphones weren't as smart as they are now. I don't even know if we had smartphones actually back then. But it was really difficult trying to maintain that on email and things like that was a great challenge. And actually, when Sean and I met, we were in a long-distance relationship for a while because I was living in Portland, Oregon. He was living in Chicago at that time. And we spent a lot of time on Skype, on text, on email, on the phone, you know, whatever sort of communication. And I would say long distance, you know, is a challenge. What we did, I'll give you just our example. This might be different for everybody, but what we did was to say, okay, how can we figure this out so that we don't have to stay in the long distance relationship? Like, one of us needs to move if this is going to work and if we're going to maintain this. So as it turned out, in our case, I was the one to do that. I moved from Portland to Chicago, even though I had swore on, you know, anything that I would never move for a man. I was never going to move for love. I was not planning to get married. You know, obviously I had no idea what I was talking about, but that's what we did. We said, if we want this to work, we have to figure out how we can be in the same space, because that's really how you know. You know, some people say, oh, well, it's easier to be in a long distance relationship because you don't actually have to deal with all this stuff. You don't have to see them all the time. But that's the point of a relationship, is to be together. So I would recommend trying to figure it out, how to make that work so that you guys can be in the same place. Jen, what's your favorite book? I can't even answer that, Jen, because there you can see behind me. I'll show you. Those are all my favorite books. The ones that are not my favorites, I don't own. So there's a lot. There's so many. I can't even say. Have you read all the books in your shelf? Monty says. That's a great question. I have not. I've read most of them. Some of them are not technically, readable books. They're more reference type material, so I keep them around for that. So I haven't read them all. But yeah, the majority of them I have read. Elena, hola from Barcelona, Spain. Hi, Elena. How are you? Hi from California. What's up, Paul? Jordan, how are you? Hi, Jordan. Bill. Thank you. And Kathy, I'm reading, they're saying, I said how much I like people saying that I inspire them. So they're saying that, which is awesome. Patrick, of course, you're welcome. Let's see. Chris says, when I get mad at anything, I think of 1 Minute with Sean. That's good. Glad to hear that. Scott says, sing like everyone is listening, dance like everyone is watching, love like your heart's been mended. Yeah, so let me tell you, I had one more question. Let me find out. I had a thing on my website before it was hacked that you could actually put in your question online. So let me just find that. Oh, podcasts, right. Daniel asked, what podcasts do you recommend listening to? And I can only tell you which ones I listen to. There are certainly a zillion out there that are, I'm sure, amazing. But the ones that I actually subscribe to and listen to when I have time to do that are Gary Vaynerchuk, The Gary V Show. I would highly recommend that one for any entrepreneur, any marketer, anybody who's in business. He tells it like it is, which I appreciate. If you don't like adult language, let's say, that might not be the best one for you, but I appreciate that. So I like that one, The Gary V Show. I also listen to Liz Gilbert has a new podcast called something about Big Magic, her newest book, Big Magic, which I would highly, highly recommend, by the way, asking about books. Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. If you don't know her, she is the one who wrote Eat, Pray, Love a number of years ago, and most people know that book because of its stellar, amazing success and the movie that was made after that. And this newest book she has is Big Magic. She writes about unlocking creativity, and not necessarily just for writers, but for everybody. I think it would be valuable for anyone to listen to, so highly recommend that. Anyway, she also has a podcast, Magic something. Now I'm forgetting the name. It's something about magic. If you guys know what it is, put it in the comments below. And then finally, I listen to I Love Marketing. That one is by Joe Polish, who's a good friend of me and Sean's, and Dean Jackson, who's a great marketer. He's known as the marketing Buddha. He's this big, awesome dude. So that one is called I Love Marketing. Again, if you're an entrepreneur or in business or any type of marketing, anything, it's great because they pull in all kinds of guests and they'll have conversations basically about what's really going on for them in their businesses, in their world, in the conferences that they attend. And so that's really great. Okay, let's see what else. Jenny. Hi, Jenny. How are you? I haven't seen you in forever. Bill Church, I've really enjoyed getting to know you and Sean on these live streams. Look forward to meeting you in person someday. Awesome. Come to our events. We're always delighted to meet you guys. Oh, Bobby, thank you. Magic Lessons. Magic Lessons is the podcast by Elizabeth Gilbert. Thanks so much. Kathy says, Mindie, are you and Sean still doing Midnight Snacks podcast? Another great question. We have not been doing that. We kind of got off schedule with our travel recently. We've had a crazy busy fall so far. We looked at the calendar today and we both were like, I can't believe we're already a week into November. I don't know where the time went. So we might bring that back. I'm not entirely sure about that. We've got some other things that are going to come up that are taking a little more of our time and attention, that are maybe a little higher priority for us, but we'll see. I totally appreciate you asking about that. All right. Suzanne says, when do you know the difference in when to give up or when to persevere? Well, I would say that you need to listen in to what your heart has to say to you. Many of you guys know this, as I've talked about it a zillion times, but the heart is a very, very intelligent organ. And I'm talking about the literal heart. And there's actually so many neurons, so many brain cells in the heart that they actually have termed the little brain in the heart as a part of the actual heart organ. And so it is really about tapping into that inner voice, because it's hard sometimes, Suzanne, I'm with you in that question, is like, how do you know when to give up, when to throw in the towel, or when to keep on? And I'll give you a specific about relationships, and then I'll talk kind of more in general about other things. So there was a time many, many years ago where Sean and I were at the brink of breaking up. We were like, this is not what we want. This is not going well. It was a really high stress situation, and both of us were kind of dealing with a lot of different stuff. So one of the things that we realized is that here's the question that we asked. Is this about the other person? Like an actual characteristic in them that we can't stand or that we don't like or that isn't good in whatever way? Or is it circumstantial? That is something just going on in each of our lives that is causing us to be a little bit crazy and a little bit stressed and a little bit nuts? And both of us were able to say, yeah, it's totally circumstantial. It's not a character issue. Like, you're not crazy, or, you're not an asshole or a total bitch. We don't do high drama, all that kind of stuff. So we were able to say, we're going to stick with this because it's just circumstantial, and circumstances are going to change. There's always going to be new situations, new context from which to. In relationship, I would say you can kind of know whether you want to stick with it or not. Is it based on their character? Is it an outside circumstance? Now, that being said, if it's an outside circumstance that doesn't change for years, that's not so cool. I don't want to say tolerate that, because I'm certainly not interested in that. So, yeah, and then okay, we're back. Had to reconnect there for a moment. Poor Wi-Fi signal. So sorry about that. Hope you guys are all still with me. In the more general context of life situations and looking at, when to give up, when to persevere, what is it worth to you? Is it a career that you're trying to persevere toward? And what is that, if you were to get to the end of your life and say, oh, I didn't pursue this, would you have regret? And if yes, then yes, you should keep pursuing it and say, no matter what, I'm going to make this happen. If you were like, yeah, I might not really care so much, and it's costing a lot of energy, time, money, etc., then yeah, maybe it's better to throw in the towel right now. But certainly I can't speak completely to that if I don't know the exact situation. Let's see. Peggy Weiss, how about a midday snacks? That's actually a good idea. The problem with that is that in our midday, we're often with clients. So that's part of the issue there. Bill says, check out the book 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work by Gottman. Yeah, John Gottman is a rock star. He's somewhere on here. Somewhere. Let me see if I can show you that. Somewhere in there. John Gottman. If you guys haven't read or are not familiar with John Gottman, check him out. So totally agree with you, Bill Church. So, as I mentioned, today's show is going to be a little bit shorter because I need to get back to fixing my hacked up, broken website, and hopefully my web host is going to fix that or help me fix that. I totally appreciate all of you guys. It's awesome to see those of you that were on here and commenting today. Absolutely, absolutely appreciate you. Love you guys so much. This is why we do what we do, to have this kind of communication with you guys. And back next week at our regular time for Kniss Live, which is on Fridays I have to think about this now, because in Arizona we don't do daylight savings time. They don't observe daylight savings. So I think it's at 11, but I'll figure that out. I'll post it on Facebook where you guys can find me. You know where to look. And yeah, keep rocking. Look for inspiration, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.